Hi, folks. Welcome back to That Hashtag Show. My name's the Tom C., your resident Ranger writer. And with me today, I have a unbelievable person with me. With me, I have Miss Melissa Flores. Misty, thank you so much for being on here with us. Now, for those of you who are not aware, and I don't know what rock you've been living under, Melissa took over writing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at issue 101. Misty, thank you so much for being with us. It's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So, what has your history in the Power Rangers franchise been like, and what has it been leading up to taking over for the amazing first 100 issues that you have to play with?
I mean, it's kind of hard to really encapsulate. I feel like, I have a tattoo of Power Rangers because I feel like it's been such a big part of my life. I was a producer, development executive / everything and everything under like anything in between for Power Rangers for about 10 years, up until about 3 years ago, I think. And I got to do some really fun stuff, and part of that had to do with the comic books. So I was an executive for Power Rangers when Boom got the license, and up until that moment, we hadn't done anything that was more that in the comic book space that was more older skewing. Before it was like Paper Cuts had the license and a couple of other people, and there was nothing wrong with the way Paper Cuts did the books. I mean, they were lovely books, really fun to work on, but they were all skewed very young. And so when Boom took the license over and Kyle came on board to write the books, it was kind of a little bit of a learning curve for us to, and kudos to them, they were really patient about training us to think comic book wise in terms of no, this is a book that we want for an older audience. This is for the older fan. We want to really take the lore seriously and really like explore the characters in a deep, meaningful way. And we were really excited about it. And so I actually got to be there in the approvals process and everything in between with the product approvals teams, going over the story from literally issue 0 all the way to I was almost to the end. And I really just fell in love with the art of comic books. By the end of my time there, when I was actually with Hasbro, that was probably my favorite part of the day, was working on those books. And by that time, we had gone through. Kyle had finished his run, and he and I had worked with each other on a couple of other really amazing projects, including he did a couple of things for Hyper Force, and he was on Battle. He did Battle for the Grid story mode for us, and we were friends in real life. And Ryan was writing the books at that point, and Ryan, I'm just such a big fan of him as well. Ryan Parrott, he's just so freaking good with character, and he had like created these really special moments and flashbacks for Rita and the villains, especially, that I just really truly fell in love with. And he and I had become friends, and so when I left Power Rangers after that time, I kind of I've always been a writer at heart, but I kind of put that aside to be an executive for that long time that I was an executive. And a big reason why was just I tried when I was younger, and it was really hard. It was really hard for to try to break into television for as a lower middle class Latina with no connections and a lot of student debt. And so I kind of had given up and like went another route, and I was happy doing that. But when I was done with my time with Power Rangers, I felt that I had worked hard enough and built enough connections and developed my talent and my story making skills enough that I could actually try and make a go of it as a real writer. And thankfully, by that time, I had met a number of people who were well versed in the industry who believed that too, and I got really lucky. And it was a different time now, so people are actually looking for people of color and women of color to tell stories, and which wasn't the case when I was trying to do it 15 years ago. And Kyle was one of those lovely people who was like, hey, I think you're talented. I really think you can do it. And he gave me a couple of backups in his book Radiant Black, which is this really successful Toku-inspired superhero series that basically took Image by storm. It's fantastic, and he was
massive, even.
Yeah, and he to that point, he was developing a universe around Radiant Black, and he saw that I could do the books. He saw that I knew how to do it. And so he asked me if I was interested in pitching him an Image, a superhero series. And that was how The Dead Lucky came about. And when The Dead Lucky came about, I took that first issue. And I was still very friendly with the Boom editors. And Daphne Plevin was one of them. And we worked together for 6 years. And she's just a fantastic, brilliant person. Love her to death. It felt like we had been through war trenches together in terms of how we got to know each other so freaking well because of the massive amount of work that went between us. And I truly valued her opinion. I think she's a brilliant, incredibly smart woman, so good with character. And so I gave her The Dead Lucky issue 1. And I was like, I'd really love your opinion on this. And she loved it. She's like, this is stunning. And it was just so at that time that they needed a writer for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And her seeing the book, I think, convinced her that I could do it. And they needed somebody to jump on board really quickly. And they needed somebody that understood the run for the past 100 issues. And there's not a lot of people that could do that could just jump into an arc very quickly and not need a lot of runway in order to catch up. Because it wasn't like they were rebooting the series; they were still going after what, issue 100. And thankfully, she called me and she was like, "Hey, are you interested in this at all?" And I was like, "You know what? This is something I when I took it to her, I wanted her opinion, and I did want to work with Boom, but I assumed it would be like something else. I never really thought I'd be back at Power Rangers, but she brought up the opportunity, and I was like, well, if Hasbro's okay with it, I don't see. I mean, I would absolutely love that. That'd be amazing, and thankfully, Hasbro was great with it, and so that's how all that happened. And she was stepping off the Boom Power Ranger books at that time, and they brought in a new editor, Allison Grenowitz, who's absolutely fantastic. And she and I have been working together really, really closely. And Daphne still reads everything, but she's doing amazing things over at Boombox, and I think she's doing Ranger Academy and a couple of other stuff. So she's not completely off Rangers. She's got other fancy things in the mix, including Turtles and Power Rangers with Brian. But the main series we kind of took over. So and it's been fun. It's been fun.
Daphne has really been kind of the caretaker of Rangers over there. Boom.
Yes, I don't think you can't underestimate how valuable she is to Power Rangers and the lore that those books created. I mean, as somebody that has now been in the deadline hell that is comic books, she never once missed a deadline. I have missed 3, and I've only been writing comic books for a year and a half. For the 6 years of Power Rangers, with all those artists and all those covers and all those temperamental writers, myself included, and all those approvals processes that took for freaking ever. And I could say that because they were coming from me. She was utterly fantastic, and the story notes that she gave, the way she speaks so passionately about character and how deeply she cares about these characters, the books wouldn't be the same without her. She truly is an amazing captain that took those books forward, and Allison is right behind her. They work really hard.
If a lot of people don't realize, it's a huge team effort when you create a comic book, especially with everything that Boom does. There's a lot or the writer could be in one part of the world, the artist is another, the inker is here, there, and everywhere. I mean, some of my favorite art comes from Dan Mora. So, I mean, if you don't know, he's
discovered Dan, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He discovered Dan. I don't think people realize Daphne discovered Dan Mora.
And he's just
doing amazing things at DC, yeah.
Yeah, and such a nice guy. I met him this past year in New York, and just such a sweet guy. Now, taking over Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, yes, you have the toy box, and you understand the lore. What was the come to Zordon moment that you were really going to start writing this?
I have a weird. I don't process emotion. I don't know if it's. I never really had the moment where I was like, holy shit, this is actually a thing that's happening. It was more like, hey, that'd be great if it happened. And then it happened and I was doing it. I don't think it hit me until I actually saw a cover on like a press release and my name was on it. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a thing I'm doing. Okay. For me, because I was there from the very beginning and because I was so intricately involved in those storylines, even though I didn't write them, they all came from the beautiful brains of like Kyle and Matt and Marguerite and Ryan and all those amazing writers that were on those books. I felt very proprietary towards them. Like I have so much love for those character arcs because I was there. I was seeing the artist renditions of these characters come in for approvals. We were tweaking these approvals. We were going through 2, 3, 4 drafts of the pitch. I was giving notes on every script. And so I came on board with no intention to really rock a boat or make it my own or do any of that. My sole purpose, especially after issue 100, was to continue continue to run in a way that you would feel as if nothing really changed. But I wanted you to also be excited about a new direction, but not feel like you've been transplanted to a different world. I wanted to pay homage to the last 6 years of Power Rangers because I knew them, or the 6 years of the books, because I knew them intimately and loved them all. But I wanted to, but I wanted to just have fun with it in a way that felt a little bit more like my style, but taking very careful note of Ryan and Kyle's flavors as well. And you see it a little bit in like those 2-page flashbacks that Ryan used to do that you still see in the books, and the big mythology and action that Kyle used to do. We kind of like weave that together and kind of create this little tapestry. So if you picked up issue 101 and picked up issue 20, it's a different writer, it's a different story, but it still feels like the same world. And that was always my pitch. Like I wanted to take things back to basics, start in a way that felt like you were just watching an episode of Power Rangers, just maybe a little older. And then once we got in pretty deep, then really explode that arc out. And that's kind of what we've been doing.
I think you guys have been doing a wonderful job. It does seem very cohesive how the transition through, between Kyle to Ryan to Matt and yourself. And you can definitely tell the points that, each of you have tried to hit over the past 6 years. And boy, did you hit the ground running. Let's be honest. I mean, for me, I see all the little things that, it's like, oh, okay, we're going here with this. I like this. There's a lot of great points. I love the fact that you're developing this relationship with Aisha and Adam. The fact you've given Matt's this fantastic, do I still deserve to be here? Even in one of the newer issues, Tommy's getting a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. And it's smart writing to be able to keep developing these, and especially, God rest Jason David Frank, but to see that his character does have some more depth other than just being Tommy that everybody knows. It really is a great way to flesh out the character.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I mean, I am so thankful that I'm in the Massiverse with Ryan and Kyle and Matt because they're never too far away, and they're always so lovely and generous. When they found out that I was taking over, they were just so happy for me. And like Kyle was like, "This feels right. This is right. This is right that you should be the one to do it." And Ryan was like so thrilled, and he's like, "You just have to do 2 things for me." And Matt too is just so lovely and generous. And like we're on a group chat together, so once in a while I'll be like, hey, what if I did this? And they're like, oh, here's my thoughts. Like you have these amazing veteran writers at your disposal, and I use that, and they're so lovely and gracious and to offer me advice when I ask for it. But yeah, I mean, I really had fun with taking a look at these characters and really just my job at Saban Brands and at Hasbro was not to be a writer. My job was to look at these stories and make sure that they represented the brand in the best way they possibly could for whatever medium that was. But that didn't mean I didn't have ideas. I didn't present those ideas because they weren't mine. This was the writer's story to tell. My job was very different. And I was very careful to keep that line, because one of my biggest pet peeves with development executives is when you give a note that's like, here's how I would write this story. It's like, it's not, no, that's not your story. Go write a story if you want to write a story. Let the writer write the story. And so I've always had like little thoughts and little nips, like gnats in my ear about like things that I wanted to always pick up again. And one of the things I've always been really fascinated by is this idea that these are teenagers. These are teenagers, and I feel like sometimes that gets lost in the mix, whether it's on the TV show or the books or whoever. That like, you remember, these are kids. These are really complicated, really hot kids, and so they're gonna have attractions to each other. They're going to want to date each other. They're going to feel some type of way about some things and have complicated emotions. And life feels very important. And you feel like you know everything when you're a teenager. And if you're a teenager that is in that kind of mentality and you're given this incredible amount of power, I mean, Tommy wants to be a ranger forever, but like, we know what the rest of Tommy's life looks like. And being a ranger forever is a heavy burden that he is going to carry for the rest of his life. And you're seeing it, like Mat teed it up beautifully, that maybe Kimberly doesn't have the same dream. Kimberly's thinking about when she's done being a ranger and when she wants to, like, sometimes she just wants to go back to gymnastics and do a freaking gymnastics tournament. Like, she's never going to be able to do that as a ranger. And that's what was interesting to me and what I really wanted to explore, this idea that these are kids. At the end of the day, like, some really terrible, crappy stuff is happening to them, and they are teenagers, and that doesn't mean that they stop being teenagers. And that's kind of where you see a lot of that development come from, where of like this idea of, Kimberly being disillusioned with the idea of Zordon's rules, and Tommy feeling this like guilt of seeing Mat, of losing Mat, and being disconnected from Kimberly in that respect, and the other Rangers in every different respect. That's my way of trying to like poke at that thread a little bit, explore what a teenager might feel at that time. Because I remember what it was like to be 18. I thought I knew everything. I didn't. I was a mess. And if you gave me a bunch of ranger powers, I might do some stupid shit, even if I thought I was like trying to do the best thing ever. And these are good kids. And that's what I like about it. But you also, like, we make mistakes, and we have real emotions, and we react that way.
Now, on the flip side of the power coin, we have the villains. You have been developing out these villains.
Yes.
Where did the idea for Mistress Vile come from?
I just really liked Rita, and I wanted to bring her back. I didn't want... I wanted a villain. I wanted to bring Rita back. I thought it was time. So much of this was back to the beginning kind of thing. I really wanted to like pay homage to how we started Power Rangers, which started with a Green Ranger that had just turned evil and was experiencing the trauma of that, and Rita Repulsa at her most insidious. And I was thinking about, like, okay, I like had always loved, one of my favorite things about Ryan's run was the work he had done with Rita, and the way she had recruited her team, and the stuff that had been happening with Fiona. And there was these Power Ranger Unlimited books that done these like incredible mythology mining with the Die Ranger suits, and with the Phantom Ranger and Dark Spectre, and I was like, how do I tie that stuff to the main series? Because I feel like it needs to. I want it to feel like it matters, and for me, the answer seemed to be, okay, let's bring Rita back, and let's bring her back in a big way, but not as she was. Let's take all that anger that she would have from being discarded by Zed and by Zordon and by Dark Spectre and her dad. Let's give her all those daddy issues and let her out and give her a lot of power and see what she does with it. And Boom was fantastic. They were like, this is like, do whatever you want. We'll run the approval by Hasbro, just whatever you want to do. And I was like, well, if she's got daddy issues and she hates her father for what he did to her, what is the biggest FU to her dad? What if Vile was a title? And she takes his freaking title away. And then, Dan Mora did a fantastic design. And it just kind of, Dan does a lot of the design still. We're so lucky. He because he's a DC guy now, but he has carved out that he can do this amazing things for us. And so he did this incredible design. He designed an incredible vessel, and we went off. And so that's where Rita came from. I just really loved Rita. I wanted to explore her character. I didn't want to do Rita Repulsa all over again. I wanted to elevate the threat a little more and give her some real power, so that when she came back, she really let Zed have it, and it would change the dynamic and force both of them to kind of reevaluate their relationship in a different kind of way.
Now, there's an interesting question that I've been thinking since issue 104 when you did the backstory for Mr. Smile. Was there a reason that it was done in the mainline series as opposed to when during Brian's run you had those unlimited? Did that ever come up to make it a side story, or was it always planned to be right in the middle of everything?
It's always planned to be in the middle of everything. One of the things that that we always plan for in these runs is having artists come in and pinch hit issues, because as a writer, I can knock out a script if I really have to in a day and a half or 2 days. I don't want to, but I could if I have to. Artist does not have that luxury. An artist, it takes time, and there's a lot of issues. They're monthly issues, and I ask them to do a lot. And so we built in these what we call fill-in issues, and we plan for them. And so that was a planned for fill-in issue. And it doesn't mean that it has to be necessarily a different thing, but it is an opportunity to step away from the story a little bit and catch you up in a different kind of way with a different kind of artist. And so when we saw the fill-in, I'm like, this is where we talk about how Mr. Smile became a thing. And this is where we really we take the focus a little bit away from the Rangers, and we really expand the world. And this is the issue where we have fun. We get to bring in Divatox, we get to bring in Master Vile, we get to talk about Alpha One, and really show Rita's journey in a really interesting way before we hit 105 and 106 and 107, where it all goes crazy. And that's kind of how we plan it. There's another one coming up fairly soon that a completely different vibe, but same kind of idea. We're kind of stepping back from the insanity a little bit and be like, okay, how did we get here? Where is this character at this moment, and how does that affect what's going to happen? Just like what happened with Rita. Let's step back for a minute. How did she get here? What is she feeling? How is that going to affect it moving forward? And so it's just taking advantage of having a different artist to allow us to tell the story in a slightly different way.
Yeah, that particular two-page spread that you and I have talked about before was just amazing to make it look like the dumpster itself, the inside.
Yeah, that was them. I literally I scripted that. I said this is what I want. I want her at the bottom, and I want all these different things up top. But I didn't tell them how to design it or anything. I just threw a double-page spread with 15 different panels, and I made good luck. And what came back was beautiful. And that particular page took me 5 hours, because I literally had to go back into all the books and find those exact scenes and that exact panel, so I can provide the reference and the exact dialogue, and be every moment was carefully picked, so we could see every single factor that turned Rita into deciding that she needed to be more than Rita. But I was very proud of it. Yeah.
You were speaking about expanding the universe. We also have another group of Rangers. We have the Omegas. What's it like developing them out too now that we have them intertwined in the story?
I purposely crafted it because we don't have 2 different comic books anymore for them to run off on their own. By the time you see them show up, they're kind of basically intricately, even though we have 2 different locations, they're kind of intricately involved with our Rangers in pursuit of the same goal. They're thrust into the same problem as our Rangers. So really it became less about what am I going to do? How am I going to give the Omega something to do? But more about okay, let's take what makes the Omega Rangers special. Let's take what makes them unique and different right now. And right now that's Trini being the Red Ranger, and them having Safe Haven and Eternity Point as their location. and let's play with that. Let's see what happens and how that affects the end game total. And I can't speak too much to what's going to happen because there's a lot that's going to happen, but they're very intricately involved with the coming conflict. So their story basically becomes our Ranger story, and then it just becomes about managing the character development of all these different characters, which is a little juggly, but it's an ensemble story. So we give everybody a little bit of focus.
Excellent. Now, leading up, I mean, let's talk about it. We've been getting the previews for months now and seeing all these wonderful covers. 106.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Mat on the cover. We've got Vessel on the cover. We've got the Death Ranger. You have hinted to everything and anything. But before we get to that, what was one of your favorite parts of 106? And we're not going to talk about the ending of it.
One of my favorite parts of 106, I have to actually think about it because it's been a minute since I've read 106. I wrote 106 right when we lost Jason, and that really affected me pretty terribly, and I had a really hard time. That was a really hard issue for me to write because I missed him. And I was really sad, and I didn't know how to speak to it, and so there was just there's a moment he has with I hope this is the right issue. Yeah, it's a moment he has with Jason when he goes to visit Jason. And the end of the panel, he says, "I miss you," and Jason says, "I miss you too, Tommy." And that was me talking to Jason. That was probably my favorite part. I just that was. I hate that I didn't get to talk to him. I wasn't as close to him as I should have been when he was gone, but I miss him and I'm sad. So.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get
you going. It's fine.
I can say from reading it, you can definitely feel the love coming through those panels. Absolutely.
I loved him. I loved him, and my heart is with him deeply. And so that was my way of saying goodbye to my friend.
And a beautiful send off. It is really. Now, after all that, you just threw us right back in. We're back in Prometheus, right? Oh, let me go back real quick. One thing that I do like that you do like to develop characters, especially your female characters, between this Dead Lucky and the Radiant and Massive and everything. I really like the pages where you had with Kim and Trini talking and catching up, because they were best friends.
Yep.
You know, and now they're literally on different sides of the galaxy. So to get that moment there of, "Hey friend, how you doing?"
Yeah, I feel like you needed that. You needed that moment of humanity between the two of them. They're both going through some really intense things, and sometimes you just need somebody to sit with you and just feel you and make you feel not so alone. And I think the two of them, because they're both going through intensely personal things, but very different things that the other ones doesn't really know about. There is a safety in that. For Kimberly and for Trini, because Kimberly, Tommy is her best friend, obviously now, and he's her partner and her boyfriend, but they clearly are not on the same page right now. And if she talks to anybody else on the team about that, she has to deal with the trauma of all of that. And Kimberly and Trini too is she's shouldering a lot of responsibility. She's now experiencing what it's like to be a Red Ranger while having very conflicting feelings for her best friend, Zach. And I like that they're the kind of friends that you don't need to spill everything to. You just need to sit with sometimes. I have friends that I don't see for years, and then we get together and it's like no time has passed. And that's kind of how I saw that. They just needed to sit with somebody that they loved and trusted for a minute, even if the world is going to hell, even if they're preparing for this huge ambush or this huge attack that they know is coming, and Matt's still kidnapped and everything is still going crazy. to have a moment where you can just breathe with somebody you love and you trust, that's a precious thing. And that's kind of what I wanted to portray, and that's why I wanted them on the rooftop, just being with my friend for a minute. Sometimes that's all you need to just keep going.
So everything else that you've led up to, I really feel as if 106 is now the jumping point for the next big war.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been one heck of a roller coaster ride, and I think we're just about to hit the descent and hit all the loops. Having that said, with everything going on with Lord Zed being taken care of at the command center, and then he's transferred to Promethea, we get a huge. I didn't see it. I, honest to goodness, didn't see this.
Yeah.
And also, again, leading up with all the previews, I think I can speak for the rest of the Ranger Nation out here. We didn't see this coming.
The teasers have been there for sure, but
they have been. Oh,
they have.
I
Maybe it was a little too obvious before, so we had to cut out, like, change art a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we Rangers, like, can I say it now? This is going to be later, right? So, like,
yeah, this is going to be later. So go ahead.
Zed become a Ranger was something that, like, they said, like, do you want to create your own Ranger? And I'm like, I want to turn Zed into a Ranger. And then again, Dan came up with this incredible design, but it was always the intention, just like with Mistress File, the Z Ranger was always a thing, and so I spent 101 to 105 just breaking him down, just making him so mad, like a man who is so powerful to have, like, to be, like, taken, who was like, and again, I am seeing them as jilted lovers, like, because eventually that's who they become, right? They become a Zed and a Rita that fall in love and truly stay in love even after that spell has worn off. And so I was like, that had to have come from somewhere. And so you see this complicated relationship they have, and like him who discarded her so easily and saw her as so worthless by the end of it, coming back, she, like, humiliates him, beats him into the ground, turns him into, like, nearly kills him, takes off his mask, takes his staff, leaves him to die. He's not even worthy of her, like, chasing down and killing. Like, she treats him like as a leftover, and, like, takes him out of his palace, and, like, he's just like, oh, he's mad. And Ryan, I was reading the books, catching up, and, like, Ryan, I don't remember if it was Ryan or Matt. I think it was Ryan. There was, like, a moment where, like, he's like, Zed's ready to go somewhere, and they're like, we put the thing in the command center, Zed. And he's like, great. And I was like, and I texted Ryan, I was like, hey, what's the thing that you put in the command center? And he's like, oh, I forgot about that.
That sounds like Ryan.
He's like, that's a you problem. You can figure it out. And I was like, oh, okay. What did he put in the command center? And it was the same thing when, like, Matt made the moon disappear. I'm like, Matt, where the frick did the moon go? He's like, oh. And so I was like, okay, well, he put a thing in the command center. If he gets to the command center and he offers his help to Zordon, he can get the thing. And then if he gets the thing and leaves the command center and goes to Promethea, he can use the thing. And the thing is a morpher. And so you see little bit, like, so if you see in, like, I think it was 103 or 10, yeah, it was 103 or 105, probably 105. He gets up, and then Zordon says the power chamber has been triggered. And Alpha, and then, like, Zed's like, don't worry about me. And then he does like this with his hands. He went down and got the thing.
Yeah, he got the thing. See, I missed it.
Thing. It's subtle, but it's there. And then you see him in at the end of 105 doing this. He's holding the thing. Now, where he hit it, I don't want to speculate. But he took the thing with him to Promethea. And so he has this morpher, and he was waiting for the right time to be well enough to use it. And because what he wants is revenge on Rita.
So, do we have an official name for
I
Morphin
mean,
Head?
I have always called him the Z Ranger. I don't know if that's the official Hasbro approved name, but
Okay.
that is the name that I have always called him in my head.
And how many? Now we know Dan is fantastic at doing design. How many redos did we go through to get to this particular design that you're going to
I
see in
would
the
say
last
like
page?
3 or 4. They weren't very different. They weren't very far off. Like
Mhm.
he nailed it, like as he always does. He knows Rangers, like, but it was just little tiny tweaks, like, what were we gonna like? What the helmet was gonna look like? Did we and what the texture was gonna look like?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
and
staring, looking at
like
it right
what the
now.
morpher would look like little tweaks
Oh,
there.
Morphin
And
was perfect.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because it was just a happy coincidence that it happened to look like the Z in the back of the morpher, because really it was based on the Z on the staff. But I'm like, it looks like both, so go with God. It's beautiful. And then it
Mhm.
was about like what color and like what's the dominant color and like so it was all just a bunch of different tiny tweaks. But he just, I mean, every design I see from him is just always beautiful. And there's more surprises from him coming that are just absolutely gorgeous.
Now, speaking of up and coming, there's been so many things going on in the Ranger books, from issue 0 all the way up to 106. A few things that we've seen in the past are things like the Zeo Crystal. We've transitioned to the Thunder Zords. Do you think, and you can neither confirm nor deny, just have you considered advancing to ninja powers, or introducing ninja a little bit more? I mean,
You know,
you're only in issue 106. So, I mean, you've got plenty to go with. Still.
yeah, I've got runway. I think for me, I've never been focused on like when does Zeo come? When is it time to bring in Catherine? Like, I don't prescribe to the idea that it is the job of the comic books to just like tell the story in the order that it's told. I think that the TV show did that already. You know what's
Right.
coming. You know what's going to happen. What I think it's the job of the comic books to tell a great story and add to the mythology in a deep and interesting way. And I would say I definitely want to write more of the Power Ranger universe. But the story I am telling right now is very focused on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And this, I don't see how a time jump to Zeo is going to further that narrative right now with the story that I am telling. So, will we eventually get to Zeo? Maybe. It really depends on Hasbro. It is not currently in my plan to have them suddenly become Zeo Rangers. Will we see Zeo Rangers? I mean, it is a 30th anniversary coming. You never know what Rangers you might see pop up in what way, because we're trying to make. I live for every single season of Rangers. I've always loved every single season of Rangers, and if I can try to include them in little tiny ways or in different ways, I absolutely will. But for me, it's more about the story that I'm telling right now. And right now, we have enough Rangers on the board. It's hard to like bring in a power transition, especially when Rita has a Zeo Crystal. So
True. And speaking, just to wrap it up, the story that you are writing right now has just been spectacular, and it has just been a seamless transition. Again, you can still tell that it's your voice coming through, and I can say, as a fan who has been reading since Jump, thank you, very much for everything you're doing to continue this legacy on, from the Boom Studios comic books. It's an amazing feat.
Thank you so much. It's terrifying, literally every issue, because I keep waiting for that moment when like the fans are going to turn and be like, she did the thing that she could not do, and now we're upset. But I'm honestly having a blast, and I'm so grateful and thankful for the fans being so supportive and open-minded as they've been, because I really was terrified, because I pitched the story out to Kyle, to Ryan, to Matt, and they're like, these are big swings, Melissa. And I was like, okay, too big? Like, I don't, how big is big? Because I know what happens when too big of a swing like is taken. You know, sometimes the fans get mad at me, and I like them. I don't want them to be mad at me. But you know, I have come to just basically accept that not everybody's gonna like everything I do. I mean, I definitely experienced that with Dead Lucky. Experienced it with Radiant Black. I experienced it as a Saban executive. You know, I lived through Megaforce and Samurai, and like I understand that not everybody's gonna love everything I do, but as long as I love what I'm doing, hopefully that comes out, and fans will be there to appreciate it.
And trust me, we can tell that the love is being put in there. So thank you so much again, Missy. We appreciate you having you on here on That Hashtag Show. Where is it everybody can find you online?
I am most active on Twitter for however long it's there, and Instagram, Misty_Flores on both. You can sort of find me on Facebook, but truthfully, that's literally just for my friends and family, and you don't want me friends with me on that. It's all boring stuff, like Easter pictures. Like, so I tend not to friend people on that. But you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm pretty active and open there.
Yes, very much. So, Missy, thank you so much again. And everybody out there, my name is Tom C., your resident Ranger Writer. Thank you for being here on That Hashtag Show, and may the power protect you.